My name is Maya Reynolds, and I'm 28 years old. The night I realized love could be weaponized into a public performance, something in me went quiet in a way I didn't recognize at first. Not numb, not broken. Just done. I used to think I was living the dream. That's the phrase people say when they're trying to convince themselves the stability they worked for can't possibly turn into a trap. Nice apartment in this city, decent savings, a ring on my finger that I'd stared at for months like it was a promise you could hold in your hand. Engaged to Evan, 26, for 8 months, together for 4 years. He'd moved into my place 2 years ago with 2 duffel bags, a gaming console, and a plant he kept forgetting to water like it was a joke we were both supposed to find charming. I'm writing this because I need to get it out of my chest before it hardens into something uglier, and because I honestly don't know if what I did was savage or simply inevitable. 2 months ago, Evan started acting weird. Not I'm stressed at work weird. Not I'm in a funk weird. The kind of weird that makes your stomach drop before your brain scrambles to protect the relationship by explaining it away. He'd come home late from the gym, saying he got caught in traffic or ran into someone from work. He started carrying his phone like it was an organ. Screen angled away, notifications silenced, laughs he swallowed when I walked in. He'd step into the bathroom to brush his teeth and take his phone with him like he might forget how to spit without it. I noticed, of course, I'm not oblivious. But I did what a lot of women do when we're trying to keep the peace in a home we've invested in. I pretended the red flags were just laundry drying in the wind. And then came the silent treatment. A full week of it. 7 days of living in the same apartment like we were strangers sharing oxygen. He didn't yell. He didn't fight. He didn't slam doors or throw anything. He just erased me. He walked past me like I was furniture. Slept on the couch with a blanket pulled up like a wall. Left for work without a glance, without a bye, without the basic human decency you give a cashier. Why? Because I asked him to contribute to groceries. That's it, that was the crime. I'd been covering the groceries for 3 months while he claimed he was saving for our wedding. I wasn't even angry about it at first. I told myself it was temporary. Teamwork. Investment. But eventually you start noticing the pattern. The wedding saving somehow still allowed weekend brunches with coworkers, random new shoes, and a gym membership upgrade he swore was necessary for his health. So one night, as casually as I could, I said, "Hey, could you pick up groceries this week? Or just send me half. I've covered it for a while." He stared at me like I'd just asked him to sell a kidney. Then he said very calmly, "So you're keeping score now." And then he stopped speaking to me. At first I tried. I really did. I asked what was wrong. I apologized for my tone. I offered to sit down and do a budget together like adults who were about to get married. Nothing. Day 2, he looked through me. Day 3, he rolled his eyes when I spoke. Day 4, I started to feel that humiliating kind of desperation, where you're over-functioning just to prove you're not the villain he's pretending you are. By day 5, I wasn't sleeping. Not because I missed him on the couch, because I could feel something in the apartment shifting, like the air itself was choosing a side. Day 7, I woke up to my phone buzzing nonstop. Texts from my friends, from a cousin, even from someone I hadn't talked to since college. And then I saw it. Evan had posted on Instagram. A clean little quote-style story, dramatic like he was starring in a tragedy. If she loved me, she'd fight for me instead of being petty about money. A real woman provides without keeping score. I stared at it for a solid hour. Because what do you do when someone takes your private life and turns it into content? My friends were texting me screenshots like they were watching a reality show. Some added, "Are you okay?" Others just sent wide-eyed emojis like the mess was entertaining. The worst part? His mom had liked it, and his older sister commented with prayer hands. Prayer hands. Like I was a demon being exorcised. That's when something in me switched off. Not anger, not sadness. Clarity. I didn't comment. I didn't call him out publicly. I didn't post a rebuttal. I didn't beg him to delete it. I took a screenshot. Then I opened my texts with his mother, Linda. We'd always had a good relationship. Linda used to joke that I was the daughter she never had. She'd call me sweetheart, bring me soup when I had the flu. Tell Evan he was lucky, like she was proud of him for catching me. I attached the screenshot and typed, "He's right, I'm done fighting." Then I attached another screenshot. The apartment listing I had just posted on 3 different rental sites. Available immediately. First month free to qualified tenants. I didn't do it to be petty. I did it because the lease was in my name only, and I finally understood what that meant. I didn't have to keep negotiating my own dignity inside a space I paid for. It wasn't even 2 hours before the pounding started. Not a polite knock. Not a hey, can we talk? Pounding, like someone was trying to break through the door and into the version of reality where Evan was still the victim. I glanced at my phone. 2 missed calls from Linda. Voicemails I didn't listen to, because I needed to do this face to face. If I tried to explain it over text, it would become a debate, a misunderstanding, a chance for Evan to twist the narrative again before the truth had oxygen. The pounding continued. And then, like a miracle, like proof that he could speak if he needed something, Evan's voice came from the hallway. For the first time in a week. Maya, he said, low and urgent, what did you do? It wasn't an apology. It wasn't remorse. It was panic. I walked to the door slowly, my heart steady in a way that surprised me. I could still hear the faint hum of the fridge, the distant city noise outside, the ordinary sounds that made the moment feel surreal, like my life was splitting into before and after, and the universe was refusing to change its background music. I opened the door. Linda stood there with her purse clutched tight, eyes blazing like she'd been driving around angry long enough to build momentum. Behind her, Evan looked small, pale, like he'd expected me to fold the second someone older showed up. Linda didn't even say hello. Maya, she snapped. What is this? I held my phone up slightly, not in her face, just enough to show I wasn't confused. It's exactly what Evan posted, I said calmly. He wanted a fight. He wanted a performance. I agreed. Evan whispered. You can't just... Linda cut him off, eyes still on me. An apartment listing? Is this some kind of joke? I'm moving out, I said. The words landed heavy and clean. No shaking, no pleading. Linda blinked. Moving out? Yes, the lease is in my name only. Evan knew that when he moved in 2 years ago. Evan's face went white. You can't just kick me out, he said, voice cracking like he was trying on panic as a strategy. I'm not kicking you out, I replied. I'm ending my lease. The landlord already has applications. You're welcome to apply like anyone else. Linda's mouth opened slightly, like her brain was trying to catch up to the idea that her son wasn't being abandoned. He was being outgrown. Evan stepped forward. This is because of the post? Seriously? You're doing all this over groceries? That cheap little line designed to make me look ridiculous. I looked at him and realized something terrifying. He truly believed his own version of the story, or at least he believed it was the one that served him best. Over groceries? I repeated softly. Then I turned to Linda. Here's what Evan didn't know. While he was busy playing silent treatment games, I'd been documenting everything. Every rent payment from my account. Every utility bill. Every grocery receipt. A spreadsheet, yes. Because I'm the kind of woman who handles real life with data when emotions become unstable. And I'd check tenant laws in our state too, quietly, carefully, not because I wanted to destroy him. Because I could feel the ground shifting and I refused to be the only one without a parachute. Linda's eyes narrowed, suspicion flickering for the first time. Evan tried to speak again, but his mom held up a hand. Evan, she said, slower now, why didn't you tell me the lease wasn't in your name? He hesitated just a fraction of a second, and that hesitation told me everything. He'd let her believe I was the villain on purpose. He'd let his own mother pray-hand my downfall. I looked at Linda and said quietly, there's more. Evan's gaze snapped to mine, sharp, warning. Linda straightened. More than a post? I held up my phone again, my thumb hovering over photos and receipts like they were loaded. Do you want to see the Venmo requests for groceries he's ignored for 3 months? I asked. Or the spreadsheet showing I've paid everything? Rent, utilities, food, while he contributed 0? Linda's expression shifted, anger draining into confusion so fast it almost looked like nausea. Evan jumped in. She's being dramatic. She's obsessed with money. She tracks everything. It's controlling. For groceries, I said flatly, while I pay for the roof over your head. Linda turned slowly toward him. Evan, she said, voice tight, you told me Maya was financially controlling. He swallowed. She is. She keeps spreadsheets and asked for help buying milk, I finished, because I was done letting him rewrite it. Linda looked back at me. The wedding savings? I pulled up his social media tagged photos. Want to see what the wedding savings have been funding? I asked gently. I scrolled. I didn't even have to dig. There he was in Cabo last month, sunburned, shirtless, smiling with coworkers like nothing in his life was on fire. Miami 2 weeks before that. A new watch posted in a mirror selfie. A caption about living your best life. Linda's hand went to her mouth. Evan's voice sharpened. Those were invitations. Friends paid. You don't know. Then why couldn't you buy groceries, Biaches? I asked him, quiet. Silence. Real silence this time. Linda took my phone with trembling hands and scrolled, her face tightening as she connected the dots. It was like watching someone read a crime report and realize the suspect shares their DNA. That's not, Evan started. Linda didn't look up. Evan, whose money was this? He didn't answer. Because he couldn't. And I felt that strange calm again, like my body had finally stopped trying to save a relationship that didn't want saving. I looked at him and said, "And Linda, I think you should know why he's been coming home late." Evan's eyes went wide, not fear of losing me, fear of being seen. Linda's head snapped up. What do you mean? Evan's voice dropped to a hiss. Maya, don't! I held his gaze. I gave him one last chance to tell the truth himself. He didn't take it. He just stared at me with that entitled confidence, like he still thought he could shame me back into silence. So I said it. Evan's been having an emotional affair with a woman he works with, I told Linda. For at least 6 weeks. I have screenshots. Linda looked like I'd slapped her. Evan exploded instantly, like the silence had been a fuse. You went through my phone? No, I said calmly. You left your iPad logged in. And because the universe loves irony, right then, right as Linda stood frozen, my screen lit up with a notification. A message preview from a contact named Marissa. Can't wait to hold you again. Linda's face went cold. Not sad, not shocked. Cold. She turned to Evan like she didn't recognize him. Get your things, she said, voice low. Now. Evan lunged forward like he could grab the moment back with his hands. Mom, wait! Linda stepped between us, her body blocking him from me like I was suddenly something worth protecting. Then she looked at me, and for a second her eyes softened, with something that looked like grief. I'm so sorry, Maya, she said. I'll have his stuff out by the weekend. I nodded once. I already packed it, I said, gesturing to the neat boxes stacked by the hallway wall. Just needs a truck. Evan lost it. You packed my things? He shouted. You can't touch my stuff. I wore gloves, I said, and my voice didn't shake. Didn't want to get emotional. He tried to push past his mother, but Linda grabbed his arm like he was 16 again and about to do something stupid in public. You're a psychopath, he screamed at me. I'll sue you. This is illegal. It's not an eviction if you were never a tenant, I said. You were a long-term guest, and your invitation is revoked. His mouth twisted, rage searching for something that would hurt. And as Linda dragged him toward the elevator, he shouted one last thing over his shoulder, desperate, cruel, performative. Marissa is twice the partner you'll ever be. I didn't even flinch. I just called back, loud enough for the hallway to hear. Cool, maybe she'll pay for your groceries. When the elevator doors finally closed and the apartment went quiet again, I stood in my hallway staring at the boxes like they belonged to someone else's life. I thought that would be the end. I was wrong. Because when you date someone who needs an audience, they don't stop when you leave. They just change the stage. And by the next morning, my phone was already lighting up like a warning flare. My phone started buzzing before I even had coffee in my system. At first, it was the normal people, my best friend sending a single cautious, "Are you okay?" My cousin texting, "Call me when you can." A coworker I barely spoke to, dropping a screenshot with the kind of message that pretends to be neutral, but isn't. Just so you know, this is going around. Then it stopped being normal. Unknown numbers. DMs from strangers. People who had never met me calling me a monster with full confidence, like Evan's version of our relationship had become a public service announcement, and they were the moral jury. He'd posted everywhere, not just Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Threads, even some random local community group where people argue about parking. He turned my life into a story with a villain, and he wrote it like he was proud of his own wounds. According to Evan, I was an abusive, controlling fiancé who financially trapped him for years. He said I monitored his spending, that I isolated him from his friends, that I threw him out on the street for standing up for himself. And the line that made my teeth ache with rage because it was so ridiculous and yet so believable to people who wanted a simple narrative. I kept spreadsheets like a psychopath. Like keeping records was insanity and not survival. Someone posted my LinkedIn. Someone posted my work email. A stranger sent me a message that said, "I hope you end up alone forever." Another said, "Women like you are why men don't feel safe." I sat at my kitchen counter, the one I'd chosen because it looked grown up, the one I'd wiped down 1,000 times thinking I was building a home, and I stared at my phone until the screen blurred. The worst part wasn't even the hate. It was the way Evan's people, his friends, his sister's friends, women who'd complimented my engagement ring at parties, were piling on like they'd been waiting for permission. A few of the nastier posts even tagged my name like a trophy. I wanted to scream. Instead, I did what I always do when someone tries to rewrite reality around me. I opened a folder. I started saving everything. Screenshots, links, comments, threats, DMs, his posts, his captions, his tears on camera. Monologues, where he stared into the lens and said things like, "Some women don't know how to love, they only know how to control." By noon, I'd called a lawyer. Not because I wanted revenge, because my life had become a target, and I could feel that same ground shift under my feet, the same instinct that had pushed me to check tenant laws before I ever packed a box. The attorney's voice was calm, almost bored, like she'd heard this kind of story too many times. "Save everything," she said. "Do not respond publicly. Do not engage. We'll send a cease and desist if necessary." My throat felt tight. Can he do this? Can he just accuse me? "People can accuse you of anything," she said. "What matters is what can be proven." Proven. That word steadied me like a hand on my spine. Because I had proof. Rent payments, utility bills, grocery receipts, the lease in my name, the iPad messages, the "can't wait to hold you again." I had proof stacked in my apartment like those neat boxes in my hallway. And still, the internet didn't care. The internet cared about the first story, the emotional one. The one where a man says, "I'm being controlled," and strangers get to feel righteous by defending him. By late afternoon, my doorbell camera pinged. Not Linda. Not a delivery. A man standing outside with the posture of someone who had been awake too long. He looked pale, like the light was too sharp. He kept glancing down the hallway like he was expecting someone to jump out. I didn't open the door right away. I asked through it, "Can I help you?" He swallowed. I'm sorry. I'm looking for Maya." Something in his tone set off alarms. Not threatening, just frantic, unsteady. "I'm Maya," I said. "Who are you?" He exhaled, eyes darting again. "My name is Daniel." A beat. He wasn't big. He wasn't intimidating. He looked like an accountant who had been hit by a truck full of consequences. "I need to talk to you," he said. "Please, just 5 minutes." Against every instinct I had, I opened the door, but I didn't step aside. I stood in the doorway like a boundary. Daniel's gaze flicked past me into my apartment, like he was checking for Evan. "He's not here," I said flatly. Daniel nodded fast. "Good. Okay, I didn't think he'd be here. I crossed my arms. "Why are you here?" His mouth opened, then closed. He looked embarrassed, like the truth tasted sour. "Did you know," he said slowly, "that Evan was engaged?" The words hit like a cold glass of water. I stared at him. "Yes, he was engaged." "To me." Daniel's face crumpled. "He told me you were roommates." I blinked once, slow. "Roommates." Daniel nodded miserably. "He said you were together, but not really. Like, complicated." A laugh tried to escape my throat and failed halfway, turning into something sharp. "Complicated," I repeated. Daniel looked like he wanted to disappear into the carpet. "He also said you were gay." I went still. Not because it hurt. Because it was so absurd my mind couldn't grab onto it at first. "Gay," I echoed, like saying it out loud might make it make sense. Daniel nodded, eyes glassy. "He said you were in the closet, that your family was conservative, that you were using him as a cover." I stared at him for a long second. Then I laughed. Not a cute laugh, not a polite one. A short, sharp laugh that sounded like my sanity snapping into place. "Gay roommates," I said, "who share a bed, who have been together 4 years, who are engaged." Daniel's face went gray. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I swear I didn't know." I believed him. Because if you've ever been truly tricked, you can spot the difference between someone who played the game and someone who didn't even know they were on the board. "What are you to Marisa?" I asked, even though my gut already knew. Daniel's shoulders sagged like he'd been holding that answer in his lungs. "I'm her husband," he said. And there it was. The twist I hadn't even allowed myself to consider. Marissa wasn't some single coworker having flirty texts. She was married. And Evan hadn't just been lying to me. He'd been detonating someone else's life, too. Daniel rubbed his face like he was trying to wipe the last week off his skin. "My wife. She knows now," he said, voice cracking. "Evan told Marissa he couldn't stay with her anymore because you kicked him out, and she panicked." I held my breath. "She sent my wife screenshots," Daniel continued, "of conversations, emotional stuff. I've never felt understood like this. I wish we met first." My stomach clenched. "And then," he said, voice dropping, "Marissa showed up at our house with a suitcase." My throat went dry. "Your wife answered the door." Daniel nodded, eyes wet with exhaustion. "Yes." He looked down at his hands. "I'm sleeping in my car," he said quietly. "I came here because I need to know what else is a lie." There was something surreal about it, standing in my doorway, staring at a stranger who had somehow become a mirror. Two people holding the same torn thread of a story we didn't ask to be part of. I hesitated, then stepped aside. "Come in," I said. Daniel looked shocked, like he expected me to slam the door in his face. But I didn't. Because anger didn't feel useful anymore. Information did. He sat on the edge of my couch like he didn't deserve to take up space. I stayed standing, arms crossed, trying to keep my heart out of the conversation. "Did he tell you I was abusive?" I asked. Daniel flinched. "Yes." "Did he show you bruises?" I added, because I'd already seen where this was heading. Daniel's eyes widened. He pulled out his phone with shaking fingers. "Yes," he whispered. "He sent photos." He held his screen out. Bruises on Evan's arms and legs. Dark, dramatic, date-stamped from last month. I stared at them for 2 seconds and felt my rage go cold. Because I knew those bruises. Not from violence. From the gym. "He does CrossFit," I said, voice flat. "Those are from box jumps and missed cleanse." Daniel's face drained even further. "He said you hit him." "I never touched him in anger," I said. "Not once." I walked to my laptop, opened a folder, pulled up videos. Evan in a gym, laughing, sweaty, showing off the same bruises like badges. Same dates, same spots. I turned the screen toward Daniel. "See?" I said quietly. "Same bruises, same time." Daniel stared like his world was dissolving. "I might lose my wife over this," he whispered. I didn't comfort him the way he probably wanted. I gave him the truth. "You might lose your wife because you cheated," I said gently. "Evan was just the bomb you chose to blow your life up with." Daniel shut his eyes, like he'd been waiting for someone to say that out loud. When he opened them again, there was defeat there, the kind you can't fake. "Is Evan with his mom?" he asked. "As far as I know," I said. "His mom dragged him out of here and promised to get his stuff. After that, I don't know." Daniel gave a hollow laugh. "My wife said Marissa was a homewrecker." I stared at him, then corrected, because the pattern was bigger than Marissa now. "Marissa is a liar," I said. "Evan is a liar." Daniel nodded slowly, like he needed to hear it broken down into something simple. We sat in an awful silence that stretched until the air felt thick. Then Daniel said, "He's still telling people you evicted him illegally." "I know," I said. "My lawyer's sending a cease and desist." Daniel looked up sharply. "Is it illegal?" "No," I said. "He was never on the lease. Never paid rent or utilities. In this state, that means he doesn't have tenant rights the way he's claiming." Daniel swallowed. "He told me he paid half of everything." I opened my bank statements. 2 years of rent payments. All from my account. I slid the laptop toward him. He stared jaw tight. "Jesus," he muttered. Then he looked at me like a man who'd run out of places to put his shame. "He played us both," he said. "Yes," I replied. And the scariest part was realizing Evan wasn't just lying to survive. He was lying to win. Daniel stood to leave, like his body couldn't stay still anymore. At the door, he hesitated. "If my wife posts, if she exposes this," he said. "It'll help," I said simply, "because right now, Evan has the mic." Daniel nodded once, swallowed hard, and stepped out into the hallway. When the door shut, I leaned my forehead against it for a long moment. Then I opened my phone, checked social media, and for the first time since the smear campaign started, the narrative was shifting, slowly. Not because people suddenly became wise, because another victim had stepped forward. And Evan, sweet, wounded Evan who wanted prayer hands and sympathy, was about to learn what happens when receipts start circling louder than rumors. By the next morning, cracks had started forming in the story Evan had worked so hard to sell. Not wide ones, not the kind that make headlines. Hairline fractures, the kind that spread quietly until the whole thing gives way. Daniel's wife posted first. No captions dripping with rage, no dramatic music, just screenshots, timestamps. Doorbell camera footage from the night Marissa showed up with her suitcase, screaming through the door about fighting for your man, while Daniel's wife stood there frozen, barefoot, clutching her phone like it was the only thing anchoring her to reality. Someone stitched it next to Evan's crying video about being thrown out. The contrast did the work for her. Then Linda commented. Not a vague family matters are private comment. Not a passive-aggressive Bible verse. An apology. I'm Evan's mother. I was misled. I've seen the financial records and messages for myself. Maya did not abuse my son. I'm deeply sorry for the harm my son caused. That single comment hit harder than any rant I could have written. Because it wasn't emotional. It was factual. And it came from the one person Evan never thought would step out of line. Within hours, some of the loudest voices went quiet. Posts disappeared. Stories vanished. One woman who'd called me a cold, controlling narcissist sent me a DM that said, "Sorry, heard there was more to it." No punctuation, no accountability, just a quiet retreat. Evan didn't retreat. He doubled down. He posted another video, this one longer. Tears. Shaking voice. Words like twin flame and soul connection thrown around like spiritual shields. I didn't cheat, he said, staring into the camera. I found real love, and now everyone's attacking me for listening to my heart. The comments were brutal. People started asking questions. Why did your mom apologize then? Why is the other woman married? Why are there receipts? Someone dug up photos from his Cabo trip, zoomed in on my engagement ring still on his finger while he toasted margaritas that cost more than the groceries he said he couldn't afford. Someone else stitched together a timeline that lined up his silent treatment week with Marissa's late-night messages. The internet does a lot of things wrong, but once it smells a lie, it turns into a bloodhound. I didn't comment. I didn't defend myself. I let the truth do what it does best when it's finally allowed in the room. 2 days later, Linda texted me. Linda, I've served Evan a formal eviction notice from my house. 30 days. I can't enable this anymore. I'm so sorry. I stared at the message longer than I expected. Not because I felt vindicated, because it hurt in a quiet, complicated way. Linda had raised him, loved him, defended him, and now she was choosing reality over denial. That kind of fracture doesn't heal cleanly. I typed back one line. Me, thank you for telling me. That was it. I blocked Evan everywhere. Every platform, every number, every app where his name might try to sneak back into my nervous system. I moved into a smaller place closer to work. Less light, fewer windows, but quieter. Safer. I started therapy, not because I thought I'd done something wrong, but because being gaslit on a public scale does strange things to your sense of self. My therapist called it reality fatigue, the exhaustion that comes from having to prove what you lived. I went on a coffee date. Just one. Nice guy, kind eyes, paid for his own drink without commentary. I flinched anyway when he joked about forgetting his wallet. Trauma doesn't care about logic. I thought things were settling. I was wrong, because Evan still needed someone to blame, and this time he aimed higher. 2 weeks after the chaos peaked, I got a call from a number I hadn't seen in months. Evan's father, Robert, former military, tall, intimidating, the kind of man who didn't waste words and didn't raise his voice unless he meant it. We'd always had a careful relationship, not warm, but respectful, bonded over football, the occasional beer. He'd been deployed overseas when everything exploded. I'm back, he said without preamble. We need to talk, in person. My stomach dropped. We met at a bar downtown, the kind with low lighting and sticky tables, where conversations stay private if you keep your voice low enough. Robert looked older than I remembered, not weaker, just worn. Linda filled me in, he said, but I need to hear it from you. I nodded. Of course. He listened, didn't interrupt, didn't defend, just absorbed everything. The post, the receipts, the affair, the smear campaign. When I finished, he lifted his beer, took a slow sip, then set it down carefully. I'm not here to argue, he said. I'm here because Evan is now claiming you stole from him. I nearly choked on my drink. What? I said. Stole what? He's telling people you drained a savings account, Robert continued. Says that's why he couldn't contribute to bills. I laughed once, sharp and incredulous. Robert, he never had a savings account that I knew of, certainly not one I had access to. I know, he said quietly. He pulled out his phone. Because I've been tracking the one I set up for him. My heart stuttered. For the wedding? I asked. Robert nodded. $500 a month, for 3 years, plus a $10,000 bonus he'd deposited last Christmas. $28,000. He showed me the statements. Then he scrolled. Want to guess when it was emptied? He asked. I didn't have to. The dates lined up perfectly. Cabo, Miami. Designer purchases. The same months Evan had told me he was broke and that I was pressuring him. He leaned back, disappointment heavy in his posture. He told Linda the account never existed, Robert said. Said I was lying to cover for you. That's insane, I whispered. It gets worse, he said, signaling the bartender for another round. He's been telling people you were never really engaged, that you forced the ring on him, that the party was just a party. I didn't say anything. I just pulled out my phone, the receipt for the engagement ring, the proposal video my friend took, photos from the engagement party, Robert in the background, smiling, raising a glass. I was there, he said quietly. I gave a toast. I know, I said. He exhaled. Linda thinks he's having some kind of breakdown. Is he using? I asked, the thought hitting me for the first time. We don't think so, Robert replied. Just spiraling. He looked at me then, not as Evan's father, but as a man watching the wreckage of his child's choices. He's trying to sue you, he said. For theft and emotional damages. My jaw tightened. On what grounds? None that will hold, he admitted, but we need to stop this before he ruins what's left of his life. He asked me for a written statement, for documentation, for help ending it. I agreed. Not for Evan, for the truth. When Robert stood to leave, he paused. I'm sorry, he said. I thought I raised him better than this. You did, I replied honestly. This isn't on you. He nodded once, grim, and walked out. That night, my phone rang from an unknown number. I knew before I answered. Evan's voice came through thin and furious. You turned my dad against me. I closed my eyes. Evan, I said steady, stop. First my mom, then Marissa, now my dad. You're a master manipulator. I felt tired in my bones. You stole $28,000 from your parents, I said. That was for our wedding. Silence. Then screaming. That money was mine. I needed to live my life. You needed to lie to do it, I replied, and I'm done covering for you. I'll drop the lawsuit if you fix this, he said. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. No, I said. I'll ruin you, he snapped. With what? I asked. What lie is left? A pause. Then, desperate, ugly, he said, I'm pregnant. I laughed. Not cruelly, tiredly. No, you're not, I said. How do you know? Because we haven't slept together in 3 months. Because you've been posting drinking videos every weekend. And because you already tried this lie with Marissa, and Daniel's wife has the screenshots where you admitted it wasn't true. The line went dead. The next morning, Linda texted. Linda, he admitted he lied. He's not pregnant. We're getting him into counseling. Please don't respond to him anymore, for your own sake. I didn't reply. I thought it was finally over. The universe disagreed. I should have known better than to believe silence meant peace. A month after everything imploded, after the blocks, the therapy sessions, the smaller apartment, the careful rebuilding of routines, I finally felt something like equilibrium. Not happiness. Stability. The kind you earn when you stop checking your phone every 5 minutes to see who's lying about you next. I had a system. Morning work from my favorite coffee shop. Same table near the window. Same barista who knew my order and never asked questions. It was neutral ground. Familiar. Mine. That morning, I was halfway through a report, headphones in, when I heard a voice behind me that tightened something deep in my chest. Not loud, not angry. Soft, practiced. Sad in a way that asked to be believed. He was so controlling, the voice said. Made me pay for everything while he saved all his money. Classic narcissist behavior. I froze. I didn't turn around right away. I didn't need to. I knew that voice. I slid one headphone off slowly. I just wanted a partnership, Evan continued, sighing. But some people don't understand that love isn't about keeping score. I closed my laptop, took a breath. Then I turned in my chair. Evan sat at the table behind me, leaning forward, elbows on the table, wearing the same expression he used to practice in the mirror when he wanted sympathy. Across from him sat a man I didn't recognize, early 30s, decent haircut, hopeful eyes. First date energy. Poor bastard. Evan's face went through 3 expressions in under a second. Performative sadness. Shock. Then real panic. Maya, he said, standing halfway out of his chair. This isn't... The man stood too, automatically polite. Oh, hi, I'm Tom. He extended a hand. I shook it. Nice to meet you, Tom, I said calmly. I didn't realize Evan came to this neighborhood. Evan laughed nervously. We were just... How's the apartment search going? I asked him, cutting clean through the noise. His eyes flicked to Tom. Fine, he said quickly. We should go. He reached for his jacket. Actually, I said, still looking at Tom, quick question. Did he mention he's currently trying to sue me for theft? Tom blinked. What? Evan's voice snapped. She's lying. This is what she does. She follows me around to embarrass me. I raised an eyebrow. Evan, this is my regular coffee shop, I said evenly, gesturing to my laptop. I've been working here for 2 hours. You're welcome to check the timestamp. Tom's gaze shifted between us. Your lawyer, I added, says the case is going nowhere, by the way. My lawyer, Tom echoed. For the emotional damages and theft charges, I clarified, even though his own parents have bank records showing he stole nearly $30,000 from them. Stop! Evan shouted. The entire coffee shop went silent. Tom took a step back. I think, he said slowly, I should probably go. Tom, wait, Evan pleaded. She's manipulating you. This is what she did to me. Tom looked at me, uncertain. Is he living with his parents right now? Last I heard, I said, he was served an eviction notice from there too, so I'm not sure. Tom shook his head once, like someone closing a door inside himself. I'm going to leave, he said. And he did. No drama, no shouting. Just gone. Evan turned on me, his face contorted with rage. You just can't let me be happy, he hissed. You sit behind me in my own coffee shop telling lies. What did you expect? I asked quietly. You came into my space and repeated the same story that already fell apart. You followed me, he accused. I pointed to my laptop again. 2 hours. Check the files. He glared at me like he wanted to rewrite the moment with force. I lost everything because of you, he said. No, I replied. You lost everything because you lied, cheated, and stole. I just stopped being your accomplice. His voice cracked. Marissa won't even talk to me anymore. Her husband probably appreciates that, I said. He sagged then, like the anger finally ran out. This isn't fair, he said, tears forming. I made mistakes. I don't deserve this. What do you deserve, Evan? I asked. A second chance. From who? I asked gently. Your parents? The people you stole from? Marissa's husband? Me? He had no answer. For a fleeting moment, I saw the man I'd loved before entitlement hollowed him out. I don't know how I got here, he whispered. Therapy might help, I said. Your mom mentioned they found someone. I'm not crazy, he snapped. No one said you were, I replied. But lying until you believe yourself isn't healthy. He looked up at me, eyes red. Did you ever really love me? The question hit harder than the accusations. Yes, I said honestly, more than you'll ever know. Then why won't you help me? I did help you, I said. For years. I paid for everything. I believed you. That was the problem. He stood defeated. For what it's worth, he said, pausing. The engagement was real to me at first. When did it stop being real, I asked. When I realized I could have more. More than what? More than someone who keeps spreadsheets for groceries. He walked out. I stayed seated. The barista approached, wiping down the table beside me. Rough, she said softly. Yeah, she snorted. The grocery thing is wild, though. Everyone buys their own groceries. I smiled for the first time in days. Some people just aren't ready to be adults, she added. 2 weeks later, Linda texted me. She and Robert were separating. This situation exposed a lot of truths we'd both been ignoring, she wrote. I hope you're doing well. You're a good woman. Don't let him convince you otherwise. I didn't reply. A month after that, I ran into Daniel at a bar. He and his wife were in counseling. Transparency, hard work, real consequences. Evan texted him from a new number, apparently, something about twin flames and being ready to be serious. Daniel showed his wife. That was their rule now. Last I heard, Evan was working part-time, living in a studio, still posting motivational quotes about rising from the ashes. Comments turned off. Someone messaged me recently. You ruined his life over groceries, they said. That's petty. I typed back after a long pause. It was never about the groceries. They didn't respond. My therapist says I'm making progress. The trust issues are real, but workable. I still flinch when a date jokes that I should pay because I'm the woman. Old habits die hard. But I'm at peace. Sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. Sometimes it's just refusing to lie anymore. The quiet that followed felt different. Not the tense, waiting for the other, shoe to drop kind of quiet Evan used to weaponize. This was earned quiet. The kind that settles in after the truth has burned through everything false and there's nothing left to argue with. A few days after the coffee shop incident, I deleted a folder on my laptop. Not the evidence folder. That stays. That's a boundary now, not a burden. But the screenshots I kept just in case. The ones I reread late at night when I needed to reassure myself I hadn't imagined any of it. The messages that made my chest tighten every time I saw his name attached to them. I didn't need them anymore, because the story wasn't fragile now. It couldn't be rewritten by tears, captions, or selective memory. Daniel texted me once more just to say thank you. His wife had decided to stay. Counseling was brutal, but honest. Transparency wasn't romantic, but it was real. I wish we'd learned this without blowing everything up, he wrote. I understood that feeling more than I wanted to. Linda didn't contact me again after her message about the separation. I think that was intentional. A clean line. Respectful distance. Robert sent a short email instead. Formal. Careful. I've submitted my statement. I hope you find peace. I replied once. I already am. Evan tried one last time. Not directly. Through someone else. A mutual acquaintance messaged me late one night. The tone familiar and judgmental in the way people get when they've only heard one version of a story. He says you ruined his life over groceries, she wrote. That's really cold, Maya. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed back. It was never about groceries, it was about respect. She didn't reply. I think that was the moment I finally understood something that therapy had been circling for weeks. You don't get closure from the person who harmed you. You get it from deciding you're done explaining yourself to people who benefit from misunderstanding you. Life didn't magically become perfect after that. Dating is still strange. Trust takes time. My body still reacts before my brain when someone jokes about money or fairness or keeping score. But I don't doubt myself anymore. I don't wonder if I was cruel. I don't replay conversations looking for where I could have been smaller, softer, quieter. I loved someone who confused entitlement with intimacy. I paid for peace with clarity. And I kept the receipts, not because I'm petty, but because I refuse to be erased. Sometimes people ask how I can be so calm about it now. I tell them the truth. The loudest revenge is drama. The quietest one is refusing to lie anymore.